Okay, so we're back and we're ready to start our next broadcast, our first panel discussion. I'll just change that over, and hopefully you can shortly see that that slide. Once I've shared, if I can, doesn't look like I can, that's fine. Now, I think you guys are going to be showing your video cameras, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct? Are we all online? Good.
Well, certainly are.
Excellent. Good. Okay, guys. Well, let's start. Look, today's been really cool. You know, I always love doing these. I think I might go online as well. Where am I? Oh, I'll see if I can fix it now. Really interesting, thought-provoking, and you know, I think this year has been an incredible year for innovation, rate of change, and a different narrative. It's been quite incredible. So let's talk about COVID-19, maybe to start with, the impact of COVID-19, and you know, this is a discussion that's open. Okay, so you know, we're not going to take turns. It'll just be a very casual discussion, guys. COVID-19, what impact do you think it's had on your customers? What are they asking you about? What are they talking about? What are their challenges right now? And how are you looking at those challenges in a development sense to support, you know, their desired outcomes in relation to where they go next? And anybody's more than happy, guys, just jump in.
Okay, guys. Well, I'll happily have a quick say on that one. I mean, what we're seeing is that these customers have all got their help desks spread all over the country. They've got their customers spread all over the country, and they now have a very different way of working. There's a lot less visibility, a lot less physical contact and touch on the devices and the people, and it's mean they need to upscale their tools. People like Kingston University have told us that there's 4 key tools to get keep them going during lockdown, and one of them was the neurons we just saw. It's all about being able to get access to that endpoint, whether it's coming in via someone's home office on a mobile phone, rarely online, occasionally online, and that's the critical thing. And without knowing physical location of devices and we have good accessibility, you know, the service desk can do very little to support them. And that was their fundamental thing. And I think the neurons came along at quite a good time for a lot of our customers to actually be able to achieve these things without having to use clunky, old-fashioned tools.
Yeah, I saw that coming out, Richard, you know, and again, it was whether it was a touch of, you know, marketing genius in relation to development and at the time or not, I don't know, or whether it's just
maybe pure luck, I think.
Yeah. Pat, maybe what are you seeing maybe in the same light, you know, challenges where your customers are addressing or asking you to address? Because you mentioned you've done a lot of survey work with your customers, which is really good, you know, great insight. How that's affecting you?
Well, one of the key things that our customers are looking for is kind of the uptake of more automation, more integration and stuff like that, making that as simple as possible. I was talking to one of my customers, I think it was back in April, actually did a video about it, and he was saying he was on his car, in Wales on holiday.
That's a good place.
When lockdown was announced. And he said that he was designing processes on his mobile phone for analog departments who are struggling to function during this and giving them self-service capabilities. If you want to show value, that's where it's at, because you have HR, facilities, all these other teams are all going to be on the front line in the rush back to work. They need better ways of working than shared mailboxes and emails and Excel spreadsheets and stuff like that. And that to me is where the value is at, because we perform well to deliver service during the actual lockdown and during the crisis. The real value we demonstrate is about what we do next. And like I said, I talked earlier on about watering our own garden. We can't do that. The house is on fire. We have got to help our colleagues actually do stuff in a much more effective way. And at the end of the day, we're the experts in service management, so we need to lead that charge. That's what we need to be doing.
Yeah, very interesting. And Prem, what about you? Are you seeing similar types of things from your customers in their challenges and how you're addressing them?
Definitely. I'd like to second Patrick on that. So we are seeing a lot of traction towards integrating the application with other tools as well. And 2 important things that I have observed in the past 6 months. One is the conversion to cloud applications, right? People are moving towards cloud. So the adaptation of cloud is actually improving in a large scale. Another thing is the usage of printers. So we were heavily relying on printers for a lot of processes. Right. For example, you know, human resources always want to print, right? Get the documents done. So now they are looking at digital alternatives. So we have to go ahead and do the conventional practices completely digital, right? So that is one more thing that we have observed with our customers. They want to build forms that are digital, right? So they want to hire people completely with digital applications. All right, so there is an increased trend towards converting, and we are moving. I would say moving forward, we'll be relying on printers very less.
It's very interesting, actually. Very interesting. Of course, the different skill set that requires. People talk about digital skills now as if they're a new thing. They've been with us forever, haven't they? So that's really interesting. And now I know we've only got a few of the guys here on panel on the cameras. Is there anybody else who's not on cameras that wants to answer that? I might not be seeing you on my screen. Is anybody else out there that would like to answer that question about the challenges of COVID and what you're seeing?
Yeah, I'd certainly add something to that. I think, it's very similar to what the other gents have mentioned. Something we've seen definitely with customers is the realization of what's been spoken about digital transformation and what that actually looks like. I think, there's been certain organizations who have understood moving to the digital world, and then those organizations who have felt they needed to do something and then found out very quickly that all of a sudden you need to mobilize the organization, and paper-based process and on-premise infrastructure suddenly doesn't scale and move as quickly as what you can if you've digitized and you're in the cloud. And we've seen a lot of customers go from email was the communication channel of choice, and they were then looking at portals as being the next evolution of self-service. And I think some customers are looking to completely skip the portal and go straight to the collaboration tool with Microsoft Teams, as the business has been forced to adopt these new ways of working with remote teams. I think we'll see less portals and a lot more coming out of the collaboration tools like Slack and Teams, as people start to realize how much easier it is to work through those channels. So it'll be interesting to see what the future holds.
It's really interesting because we talk about this stuff. You guys talk about this. We talk about this in every single event under the sun forever. And what's been incredible, I think, in a very short space of time, is how that narrative has shifted and changed. How almost the mufflers maybe on the potential customers or the people who listen to this stuff have almost come off, and people are like, oh, hold on. And the way in which the narrative has sort of changed as well around some, when we talk about digital transformation 2 years ago, 3 years ago, it soon became a bit of a hype thing, and people sort of rolling their eyes. All of a sudden, it's like, I was speaking to two customers this week, one NHS service and one a huge MSP, and one had dumped their sort of digital transformation roadmap that was like 18 months into like 2 days, right? And they just done it like that, and as a hospital, they had to, and they're putting in a chatbot. Now, I asked them, if I'd said this to you a year ago, we'd had this conversation, would it have been like this? Nowhere near it, nowhere near the conversation. So that's been quite incredible as well. And you talked about the scalability and the amount of the amount of deflection or work into these kinds of intelligent platforms. Again, I was speaking to one organization who went up. It's an internal organization, but huge. They went up. They implemented a chatbot, which has become more intuitive over the last 18 months. From the first half of March to the second half, the increase in the usage of that went up to 70,000 contacts a week. And luckily, they were 18 months into development, so they could scale without any impact. So I was like, well, what's happening to people who haven't been able to do that and can't scale? What's happening? So very, very interesting indeed. We talked a lot today about self-service and self-sufficiency. There's a key topic area. I think historically we've seen that that's been a challenge in many organizations, the adoption of that. So I think, with everything we've seen today, culturally, in this environment, when we talk about collaboration tools, how are you seeing organizations approaching that to try and adopt these kinds of technologies we've seen today more effectively? What are you seeing things change? How are you helping organizations do that as well?
So from our perspective, what we've seen is that IT is all of a sudden being driven by the business for the first time, whereas ordinarily the business would be trying to drive those technologies out. And what we've seen is the business has now started to drive IT and say, well, I can get something almost instantaneously from the marketing department if I ask them for something, and that level of service has gone up. So I think what we're seeing is, businesses are saying, well, we've got to be able to have it integrated into these collaboration tools and be seamless. And that's either got to be fully automated. And if it's not automated, we've got to reduce the call handle times, because this instant resolution or short resolution to my problems becoming the new norm. You know, businesses, you send me an email and I'll respond to you within 3 days for a priority 3 call. Well, now people realize that in a collaboration tool, I can ping somebody in finance, ask them a question, and they can give me an answer to what I'm asking. Why can't I get that level of service from IT? So the only way they can handle that is to start to put in automation and start dealing with those repetitive type activities. Otherwise, they seem that they just have to scale the teams, which obviously they can't do. So I think it's an interesting time for IT and how they service the business.
I think certainly, I know, Pat, we've talked about the focus on collaboration a number of times recently. I think more so than ever, really. It's become almost a hype phrase on its own in some cases, isn't it? What are you seeing again in relation to collaboration and how that's supporting organizations becoming more self-sufficient? The end user who wants to pick up the phone, but now it's, well, we don't really need you to pick up the phone. You can do something else.
Well, I think the challenge is that we refer to collaboration. We talk about tools like Zoom and Teams and stuff like that. But essentially, at the end of the day, all of these tools are a different way of having meetings. That's all it is, really. It's just a different way of having meetings. Collaboration is an entirely different animal to that. Collaboration is talking about working out loud, actually publishing what your work, inviting others to narrate on it, to share ideas, and kind of work in a much more open fashion. And that's a journey we went through 7 years ago now. And it wasn't easy, because basically people would revert to the old ways of doing things by email, et cetera, et cetera. So what we're talking here is not about tools, but actually changing the culture of the organization so that people start to work in a more open manner. And to do that, you know, Microsoft Teams isn't going to give you that capability. You have to make it a destination application. So that means that collaboration happens in the same place as work gets done. So for most people, their destination application is email, and we've got to institute change that gets people out of their inboxes, which doesn't facilitate that kind of transparent sharing of information, and into a new environment where collaboration actually happens as a result of work getting done, not the other way around.
Yeah, that's fair. And I think, Prem, there was a lot of focus there on when you talked about ITSM. And how that adds value to an organization and different ways of working. What have you seen maybe as the biggest challenges and again, culturally shifting an organization to adopt an ESM model? What are you seeing there? What are the biggest challenges, and how maybe would you be addressing that?
All right, so the first challenge that I see is the mindset. All right, so we talked about all the technology adaptation, and that's happening within 1 or 2 days. That's because there is a huge shift with the mindset of people now. All right, so we have been struggling hard to drive people to use service catalog for a very long time, probably a couple of decades. But now we have seen people adapting to chatbots and chat very easily. I would call this as the Microsoft Teams phenomenon that's happening for the past 6 months, and people are easily driven towards using chat as the primary medium for contacting support. And we implemented a chatbot for our support, Service Desk Plus support, to our customers, and we have seen 18% of the calls, the chat coming in, is handled by chatbots that are getting resolved with chatbots, and we were able to achieve this in just 3 months. And we did not do anything fancy. And all this time, people were thinking that chatbot is a fad, and now suddenly it's changing and adding value. So that is one thing. So change in mindset is the key, I believe, to drive people to use new technology and adapt to new processes. And especially when it comes to enterprise service management, everyone has their own favorites. So they want to use their own tools. They are so used to a particular tool for a very long period of time, and you're asking them to shift towards a different tool and process altogether. And that requires conditioning, right? So we have to wait for the people to change their mindset. So that is the huge challenge that I see when it comes to ESM.
Yeah. I was going to say, Richard, yes, sorry, go on you.
Yeah, apologies, sorry to interrupt.
No, not at all.
We only spoke last week to Glasgow University using enterprise service management, and they've been knocking down the door every department over the last 2 years trying to get them to use the tool. And he says over the last 6 months, their door is being knocked down, metaphorically, of course, by those departments saying we need to provide service to our users who can't come and find us, who can't, don't know where we are, and we need to use your tool set to do it. And it's because this fundamental shift in where we are right now, and they were never going to do it through coercion or
No.
through small changes. There was a massive shift in requirements over the last 6 months, and that's caused them to realize they can't suddenly tweak what they're doing and still offer service.
No.
And now they've got dozens of departments coming to them saying,
Incredible.
we need to jump on your platform. And they were delivering new services within an hour of being requested.
Wow.
And that was getting the results that people were seeing and needing to actually make that shift.
What's really interesting as a sort of an observer of the industry, right, is how a number of organizations, number of vendor organizations sort of centered on ESM as a theme. Some did, some didn't, you know, and if you go to all the events and all the shows, you can see on the signboards, you know, maybe some of the target types of stuff the developers, application developers, vendors are looking at, and you could see the ones which are highlighted ESM. And I think ESM has been a bit of a slow burner. I don't know how you feel about that, but some organizations have picked it up okay. Some other organizations going, yeah, another fad. And it's really interesting when we talk about the narrative, again, changing because of where we are right now, what that's forced on us, and how people have now changed their appetite and attitude to something like ESM. And you know, I was reading and when was that? Was it 2018? A 2018 Forrester report on the state of ESM. Now, I'd love to see that now, and I know a couple of you guys were in that. You know, I'd love to see that now in what that relates to from the people who want to understand what that really means in their organization. It's very, it's crazy actually when you see that narrative change.
I think I'd say probably about 80%, 75 to 80% of the requests we got coming in now is not just for IT, it's for an ESM approach.
Yeah, wow.
And possibly the self-sufficiency, I kept banging on about it, but the need for that, I'll give you an example. London Borough Waltham Forest, one of our customers, they started with IT. Quickly, they saw that IT were in, HR were in serious trouble. So what they did was they kind of started them off on the right foot and then stepped back and gave ownership to them. And within 6 months of those guys getting up and running and designing the tool themselves, so just business people designing the tool themselves, they had actually reduced the amount of information duplication by 47%. They reduced the number of forms needed by 72%, and they cut the time to recruit a staff from the point of saying, I need someone, to having them started by 36% in the space of 6 months.
That's incredible, isn't it?
That's how you show value within an organization.
That's incredible. Because again, Pat, without what we've gone through, that wouldn't have been a thing.
No. Not
incredible,
not a hope in hell, but organizations, a lot of our customers are already doing this.
Yeah.
One of them is basically tracking his ESM opportunities. So when he talks to any part of the organization that have a specific problem they could fix, he logs it on a Kanban style board within the tool and actually just follows up on the opportunities to solve problems for other parts of the organization.
Yeah, cool.
That's what we should be doing.
I totally agree. And we've got about 3 minutes left, guys. We could have done this all day, to be honest, right? I think. I raised the point earlier about how the with Richard and Neurons on what that means for a skilled service desk analyst, because it is a skill job. Many people in the industry may not think that, especially if you're in second, third line, right? Some of the more technical remits, they may not think, but it's a very skilled job. I'm really interested in what you think, maybe relatively quickly, what do you think about how the service desk analyst role is going to change? I mentioned my nirvana of not the service desk becoming less populated and less skilled, the service desk becoming more populated, more skilled, because you're bringing the service directly to the customer with a better skill set and actually more administration freedom to manage this technology for better outcomes. And guess what? Why? Because they know the service. The clue is in what they're called, the service desk. What do you think? How do you think this is going to change that relationship between IT, the sort of more technical parts of IT, and the service desk? What's going to change?
Hi, David. I think something else that's happening and impacting those resources is the move to a more of a unified application set. If you look at Microsoft Office, it's quite a standardized offering. Everyone is pretty much on the same system, the same tool. The only difference is very slight variations in configuration. So I think the end users will somewhat have an easier journey when it comes to the tools that they use day to day, but it's the niche surrounding applications that each organization has where those third line specialists are going to increasingly be needed. And I think what's going to happen is a level of self-service, and then you have the line on top, which is very niche, very particular, and I think that's where we're going.
And do you think, and I'll ask you all, probably guys, in a yes or a no, right? We've got 1 minute, right? Do you think that the skills, when we look at shifting left, do you think the skills that are those SME skills in third line through the technology and through sort of, you know, a flatten effect, do you think that those skills should move into the service desk to be part of the service desk remit? And each of you, yes or no? I'm hoping you're going to say yes.
With the correct controls in place, yes. I would say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, the tools should be doing it for you. There shouldn't be a need.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have to reinvent the jobs, as we always say, and you know, probably
That's a good point. It's a
there is
really good point.
Gap in the IT service desk industry as well. So a lot of analytics is coming into picture now. So we have to reinvent and rethink our jobs, and you know, so we probably, you know, shift left certain things to AI and chatbots, and we have to think of the roles that we can take in. There is a lot of gap and we have to fill it in. So the existing resources can be retrained to fill that.
Yeah. Good. Guys, that was really cool. We're doing one a little bit later. I don't know if guys are going to be around for that one as well, but you know, that was great. Short and sweet, but I think, you know, again, we could do this type of stuff all day long. So we're gonna finish on that one now, and we're gonna move on to the next presentation, who is from, let me have a little look, it's from Alemba, and it's James Spate and Lawrence Scott McKay. So bear with us, thank you very much. Just rejoin us, refresh the browser, and we'll be back in with the next show. Thank you.